Hi guys, my name is MediaManiacs if you don't know already, and I'm going to be teaching media studies next year. And so this task that you have today is to help you prepare over the next few weeks to think about media studies and what it means. And so one of the things you're going to learn very quickly is you cannot always believe what you see, because right now I'm obviously not here. I'm actually here. Actually, I'm not here, I'm here. And so what you learn very quickly in media studies is that you have to be discerning. And if you are not, just as a normal person, but especially as a media studies student, discerning about what you are seeing in the media, the things you consume, what can happen is you can be very easily duped. And so part of the work that goes into being a media studies student is to think critically about what we see in the media and to consider what those things mean, because the media is another vehicle for communicating messages and values. I always teach my students that the media is a liar. The reason why I say that is because it's a mnemonic. It's a way to remember some of the theoretical frameworks that underpin media studies. The first being media language, media institutions, media audiences, and media representation. Those are four pillars that underpin media studies. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about what each of those means. Then I'm going to set you a task that's linked to looking at those different components. Like I said before, the media communicates messages and values. It tells us stuff. It tells us stuff about what we should think and how we should think and what's important and what's not important, what's beautiful and what's not beautiful, what's cool and what's not cool, what's right and what's wrong. We are learning things always through the media, and it's subtle. You don't always notice it. And so what studying the media does is it forces you to think critically about what you're seeing. And one of the ways that the media does that is through media language. Media language is the vehicle which the media uses to communicate those ideas. So if you think about body language, we understand how people are feeling and what they're thinking by some of their body language or their tone. So these are things that aren't necessarily things that are spoken, they are things that we can interpret to understand what is behind the person's gesture. So if somebody waves at you, you can interpret that in a certain way. It has a meaning attached to it. Similarly, if somebody shook their fist at you, that also communicates meaning. Media language does exactly the same thing. It's the conventions of a genre in communicating certain ideas, using things such as camera work or editing or mise en scene. These are terms that you'll come across and you'll learn more about them, but these are some of the tools, these are some of the vocabulary that the media uses to help us understand the messages and values it's trying to convey. So the media messages and values that we consume and we receive are communicated by institutions. Who those institutions are has been redefined in recent years because of technology. So whereas before it might have been an institution like the BBC or Disney or a big corporation like Fox, nowadays things like YouTube and TikTok and other forms of social media means that you and I can communicate ideas and messages using different forms of technology. The group or organisation behind the media is the institution, and they will have their own values, they'll have their own ideas, and they'll have their own beliefs about various different things. They are the ones that own the media that we consume. They have different biases and different things that are important to them, and so that will come through in the media that they produce. The people who consume the media are media audiences. They are the group of people that are being addressed by any given media. And so not all media is for all audiences. Some audiences are very specific, some are very broad, but there is always an audience in mind. And so one of the things that media studies is going to force you to do is think about who is the audience for this particular piece of media. You also think about how those audiences are targeted. How does that institution reach a particular audience? What you will also see is that those messages that are communicated in different ways. This is what we call representation. A representation of ideas, of individuals, of groups, of whatever it may be, an event it is being represented. And so the media may focus on some aspects and not on other aspects because it fits in with their particular agenda or their particular biases. All media presents information as it sees it. It's not ever 100% objective. It's always going to have some sort of subjective bias. It's going to be a little bit biased in some of the things that they present. Now, news media is supposed to be impartial, but we're going to be looking at a task today that shows you that every media agency has its own particular bent. And so what that does is influences how they present the media. And so those 4 different components are pillars in media studies: media language, institutions, audiences, and representation. And the way that I always tell my students to remember it is the media is a liar.